Welcome back. Well, Ashwini, I wanted your view on a couple of sectors, cement as well as steel. They've had a rough 2024, but some part of the street is optimistic about 2025. Before we come to you, Ashwini, I just wanted to run our viewers through a few couple of points. First, in this year, the biggest problem was Chinese exports. They hit the highest that we have seen in multiple years. In fact, it's the highest since 2016, more than 100 million tons. And India was suffering because imports went up. We had steel imports that jumped up drastically in this particular year itself. So it's been, a big problem with regard to that. But the ministry is saying, your steel ministry is saying, give us some protection. And if that comes about, if we're talking about the 20% odd, then probably steel prices could get increased by around 2,000, 2,500 rupees odd. And as of now, at least, the domestic prices are a bit of a discount in comparison to the landed cost of steel. Can things get better from here on? That's the most important. Steel prices in China are likely to have bottomed out. You have exports as well that could fall from these elevated levels. And there is domestic capacity that's going to come on stream with focus on cost efficiency as well as on value-added products. And if you just pull up a chart, you'll see the kind of capacities that the street has planned. We'll see whether or not there is protection that's coming in there. Cement, it's been a forgettable year. Good amount of consolidation, but pricing, demand, very weak. Pricing is at the lowest we've seen in the last 4 years. Demand, you can blame it on the monsoon, on the winters, on the summers, but the demand has been very, very weak. And you have the state and central elections as well that have added some kind of a headwind to this kind of demand. But the street is optimistic. Goldman Sachs is saying FY26 will rebound in terms of demand. It should grow by close to around 7%. On profitability, both Incred as well as Access Capital, they say spreads are improving and EBITDA per ton as well should improve. So the question, Ashwini, is, will things improve from here on with regard to cement as well as steel? There is optimism, but will it become a reality? What's your take?
Nigel, on steel, the answer is very clear. If the government were to go ahead and impose a 25% import duty, as suggested in some of the newspaper reports, basis discussions that are apparently going on in the government, then obviously, steel stocks will do very well. Your EBITDA per ton will expand, and that will lead to, very solid earnings growth. The question I wonder sometimes is that desirable from an inflation perspective or from the cost of inputs for other industries? I'd be disappointed if import duties are put into place, even though there's some short-term dumping issue from China. But nevertheless, if the duty comes through, obviously, it'll be good for steel companies. On cement, again, I think the spreads are actually pretty decent, and spreads are not bad. And if the rural demand were to revive, because water reservoirs are pretty good and winter crop outlook appears to be pretty strong, if you see a revival in rural demand, then I think cement can also do a little bit better going ahead than it has done in the recent past. But cement is an industry which doesn't excite me as an investor. I mean, you can put up as much capacity as you wish. There's no shortage of limestone in this country. And, time and again, all of us who've tried to project supply have found that, supply has turned out to be a lot larger than what we had anticipated. So it's more of a demand situation that drives cement as opposed to lack of supply. So I think that's the point one has to bear in mind. So it might be a trading pop, but it's not really something that creates value in the long run.
Okay. All right. So that's on steel, on cement, some of those sectors. Ashwini, you tell us, while you were cautious on 2025 and you've said that it might not be a straight line, might not be a very charitable year, what is your best bet, money-making idea?
Thanks, Surbi. What I'm looking at are some of the sectors that have been out of favor this year. Consumers, for example, I think there's been a huge amount of correction, both in relative as well as in some in absolute terms in consumer names. So that's an area where I think, I see some stocks which are starting to look fairly attractive on a bottom-up basis. Some of these are in the staples space. I also see specialty chemicals and a lot of the other large chemicals, including agrochemicals. There, I think both the end product demand as well as margins should normalize going ahead. So, this is an area where we saw that COVID boom and the post-COVID bust. And I think pretty much all the bad news is behind us. And the third one, which has been which is a little more difficult to call, honestly, is financials. I mean, financials have been in the doghouse all of 2024, barring a couple of names. And I think both on the asset quality front and on the growth front, news is going to be incrementally better. In financials, however, I worry about the role of fintechs and how agile and nimble they've become and their ability to eat away at some of the core business of the bank. So the large banks, leave me a little bit more lukewarm. But maybe the microfinance players turn around. Maybe some of the fintechs start looking interesting. I mean, and there are some other lenders which are looking quite interesting. So it's a kind of a mix and match, more bottom up. But that's one area that I'm looking at.
Okay, all right. That leaves us with a fair amount of optimism and some ideas to work with. Ashwini, thank you very much for being with us on the show today. Wish you a fabulous end to 2024 and an even better 2025. Thank you for joining in. And with that, guys, it's a wrap.
Yeah, it's a wrap.
Absolutely, it's a wrap. Thank you very much for staying with us. We'll be back bright and early Monday morning and, of course, continue market coverage. But news and updates continue here on the other side.